To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way we perceive the world and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. Photography not only helps us to learn, but also helps us to feel, to be informed, and to create connections. Welcome to our presentation on photography as a means of communication. Today we will be looking at photography and the many ways that it facilitates communication as a universal language, a means of advertising, promoting visual literacy, and acting as a technology in itself. Communication is defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as the act of senses relating to affinity or association. Encompassing many different modes of information transfer, communication focuses on the premise of making connections to something or someone in order to create meaning. Starting off in the world of orality, communication and information transfer has changed drastically. From text to technology, communication is no longer restricted to a geographic location or a book. Human processing of communication has not changed over the years. It is the medium that has developed and changed the way our communication looks. In this presentation, we will examine the role of photography in the development of information transmission and communication structures. Photography is used as a powerful medium that encapsulates information, meaning, and personal structure as individuals create associations to the images they view. Images and drawings have been around since the beginning of time, but photographs themselves are a relatively new technology.
So where did photography come from? A revolutionary tool, the photograph would alter culture and communication in the West forever. For the first time, people could send images of real life, captured for posterity, and send them around the world to be seen by others. The first photograph, or more specifically, the earliest known surviving photograph made, was taken by Joseph Nicéphore Niepce. The image depicts the view from an upstairs window at Niepce's estate, Le Gras, in the Burgundy region of France. When the craze for the newly invented art of lithography swept France in 1813, it attracted Joseph Nicéphore Niepce's attention. His trials with lithography led to what Niepce later termed heliography and resulted in the earliest known surviving photograph made in a camera, which he produced around the year 1826. Niepce decided to partner up with Daguerre and join forces on the development of the invention. Unfortunately, Niepce died just 6 years before Daguerre revealed his camera. Despite his absence, his contributions towards the development of the camera did not go unnoticed. In 1839, Daguerre's photographic invention, the daguerreotype, became a commercial success, overshadowing Niepce's heliograph. On August 19, 1839, the daguerreotype was revealed by François Arago, as Daguerre claimed to have a sore throat. The government of France offered Daguerre a full pension if he would reveal how he had created his machine. Daguerre created a booklet which was immediately translated into hundreds of languages. Little was mentioned or known about who contributed to the final invention or of any previous attempts. This photographic process, the daguerreotype, was the most commonly used for the next 20 years. By 1860, the daguerreotype had been completely replaced by new processes which were less expensive and produced images more easily. This is one of the earliest photographs taken. It is of a still life. This photo was taken looking out of Daguerre's window of the people on their way to work. Both were taken on one of the earliest reliable daguerreotypes. Our culture places great value on the imaginative art from the past. It is sometimes forgotten that one of the most common uses for visual depictions in centuries before was to copy the observable world and communicate visual information in an uninflicted manner. Images, or rather paintings, were done to convey a message of what had occurred in that moment, or to capture a person at a certain age in a certain position of authority. Now, with photographs, the possibilities had the potential to be endless. As photography evolved and became accessible to the mass public, it began to modify the look and feel of communication. In 1850, photography was already deeply at odds with itself. According to Marion, it was conjectured to be variously an art, a danger to art, a science, a revolutionary means of education, a mindless machine, and even a threat to social order. According to Marion, photography augured a modern, bloodless class revolution, achievable only to the well-to-do. Others envisioned a monstrous social degeneration in which the middle class, sated with visual fantasies of reality, would repudiate accepted values and become a breed of narcissistic, self-justifying voyeurs. The web is full of photographs from the 1850s, including this family portrait and even a class photo. The photos we have today have come a long way from the daguerreotype. In 1889, George Eastman invented film with a base that was flexible, unbreakable, and could be rolled. Emulsions coated on a cellulose nitrate film base, such as Eastman's, made the mass-produced box camera a reality. George Eastman went on to found the Eastman Kodak Company, popularizing the use of roll film, helping to bring photography to the mass public. What power have we gotten as a people thanks to digital images? We can't help but wonder about the impact film has had on the world and how it too compares to that of the digital image today, which is sent, viewed, shared, and distributed all within milliseconds of being taken. Being able to take photos opened the world up to a knowledge of the workings of other cities that many would never see for themselves. It communicated how life was or had been captured in that moment the photo was taken, therefore telling and revealing a story. It prompted people to want to know about other cultures and therefore dig into knowledge sources that would be available in other modes, perhaps in written stories, which would have required an understanding of reading. If photography has acted as an educational tool since its creation, then each generation that grows up with it gains an even more accessible version. The question is, at what moment in history did the discursive desire to photograph emerge and begin to manifest itself incessantly? According to the Oxford Dictionary, discursive is defined as involving discussion. Formally, it is talking about or dealing with a subject that are only slightly connected. We see this in photography as images work together to build knowledge as a part to a whole. In 1839, Daguerre took a series of photos of views of the Tuileries Palace, taken at 3 different times of the day, in the summer, in the morning, at 5, in the afternoon, at 2, and at sundown. This series surely represented a commentary on the interdependence of appearance and time, as they visualized time itself as a continuous linear sequence of discrete moments. They also showed that photography was, in the way it brought the present and the past together, in the one viewing experience, capable of folding time back on itself. In other words, Daguerre again presents photography as a distinctive temporal articulation of what it, and therefore we, see. Indeed, he, like Talbot, seems to be suggesting that the primary subject of every photograph is time itself. Many photographers have attempted to negotiate time through their work.
Photography became increasingly popular throughout the 20th century. Attributed to the popularization of roll film cameras by Kodak, photography became a more accessible and practiced art. Noted that the quality was poor, individuals, with the assistance of promotional advertising, embraced the ability to document and preserve memories. Kodak removed the professional qualities and many of the costs that were traditionally necessary for photographers and made photography a social act of communication. Muir and Phillips state that Kodak transformed photography from a complex, alchemy-like activity to a popular social practice that became part of everyday life for billions of people around the world, who found it suddenly necessary to preserve memories and record all the Kodak moments in their lives. Kodak marketed their products towards female, family life, and leisure. Becoming increasingly popular, photography has taken on a life of its own in the 21st century. Content has extended beyond the documentation and preservation of memories and has become a key means of communication and information acquisition, described as visual literacy. Social changes of the time were critical elements in the invention of cameras and photography. From the Industrial Revolution to the rise of the press, new means of communication were coming forth. The camera was invented before the photograph and was seen as a superior eye, catching stills which illustrated social, cultural, political, and leisure life. It was not until the Industrial Revolution that a means to preserve images was invented. Photographs were a part of mass production and able to be used to function as a social commentary documenting the times. This image depicts the increasing divide between upper, middle, and lower class citizens. Along with the technological breakthroughs, the Industrial Revolution brought crime, urban poverty, and the rise of self-indulgent nouveau riche. As a product for culture and a product of culture, photography as a technology has continued to grow and develop over the past century, taking monumental leaps in its role as an agent of culture and means of communication.
Photography has held the power to advance literacy since its invention. Today, we have the ability to make meaningful educational impacts worldwide, thanks to the ability to communicate through images with people from many different walks of life and languages. During the past 150 years since the invention of the photographic process, socio-political developments and technical advances have expanded the use of photography from staged family portraits to chronicles of war and post-war humanism, and from studies of distant and unfamiliar cultures to contemporary everyday life in cities and rural communities. The following artist has invited the world to participate in both a cultural and political challenge to change the world through images pasted in public spaces. JR is trying to confront the commitment, freedom, identity, and limitations.
"12 years ago, I was in the street writing my name to say I exist. Then I went to taking photos of people to paste them on street to say they exist. From the suburbs of Paris to the wall of Israel and Palestine, the rooftop of Kenya to the favelas of Rio. Paper and glue, as easy as that. I asked a question last year, can art change the world? Well, let me tell you, in terms of changing the world, there have been a lot of competition this year, because the Arab Spring is still spreading. The Eurozone has collapsed. What else? The Occupy movement, find a voice. And I still have to speak English constantly, so there have been a lot of change. So when I had my TED Wish last year, I said, look, I'm going to switch my concept. You are going to take the photos, you're going to send them to me, I'm going to print them and send them back to you. Then you're going to paste them where it makes sense for you to place your own statement. This is inside out. 100,000 posters have been printed this year. Those are the kind of posters, let me show you. And we keep sending more every day. This is the size. Just a regular piece of paper with a little bit of ink on it. This one was from Haiti. When I announced my wish last year, hundreds of people stood up and said they wanted to help us. But I say it has to be under the condition I have always worked. No credit, no logos, no sponsoring. A week later, a handful of people were there, ready to rock and empower the people on the ground who wanted to change the world. These are the people I want to talk to you about today. 2 weeks after my speech, in Tunisia, hundreds of portraits were made. And they pasted every single portrait of the dictator by their own photos. Boom! This is what happened. Slim and his friends went to the countries and pasted hundreds of photos everywhere to show the diversity in the country. They really make Inside Out their own project. Actually, that photo was pasted in a police station, and what you see on the ground are ID cards of all the photos of people being tracked by the police. Russia. Chad wanted to fight against homophobia in Russia. He went with his friend in front of every Russian embassy in Europe and stand there with their photo to say, we have rights. They used Inside Out as a platform for protest. Karachi, Pakistan. Charmin is actually here. She organized a TEDx action out there and made all the unseen faces of the city on the walls in her town. And I want to thank her today. North Dakota, Standing Rock Nation in this Turtle Island, DJ Two Beers from the Dakota Lakota tribe wanted to show that the Native Americans are still here. The 7th generation are still fighting for their rights. He pasted up portraits all over his reservation, and he's here also today. Each time I'm getting a wall in New York, I'm using his photos to continue spreading the project. Juarez. You heard the border, one of the most dangerous borders in the world. Monica have taken thousands of portraits with a group of photographers and covered the entire border. Do you know what it takes to do this? People, energy, make the glue, organize the team. It was amazing. While in Iran, at the same time, Abu Lolo, of course a nickname, has pasted one single face of a woman to show his resistance against the government. I don't have to explain you what kind of risk he took for that action. There's tons of school projects. 20% of the poster we're receiving comes from school. Education is so essential. Kids just make photos in a class, the teacher receives them, they paste them on the school, here they even got the help of the fireman. There should be even more schools doing this kind of project. Of course, we wanted to go back to Israel and Palestine. So we went there with truck. This is photo booth truck. You go on the back of that truck, take your photo, 30 seconds later, take it from the side, you're ready to rock. Thousands of people use them, and each of them sign up for a 2-state peace solution. And then walk in the street. This is the march, the 450,000 march. Beginning of September, they were all holding their photo as a statement. On the other side, people were wrapping up streets, buildings. It's everywhere. Come on, don't tell me that people are not ready for peace out there. These projects took thousands of actions in 1 year, making hundreds of thousands of people participating, creating millions of views. This is the biggest global art participatory project that's going on. So back to the questions, can art change the world? Maybe not in 1 year, that's the beginning. But maybe we should change the question. Can art change people's life? From what I've seen this year, yes. And you know what? It's just the beginning. Let's turn the world inside out together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Photography threatens and impacts existing political and religious institutions. It has done so since its creation in 1839 and continues to in millions of ways. The whole of Western thought was toppled by the relation of representation to that which is posited in photography.
Conveying meaning in print beyond text, photography presents the opportunity to communicate information, messages, and meaning. Reaching to a broader audience, photography mirrors what education practices are attempting to integrate into the classroom, removing the restrictions of text, allowing for decoding text to not be an obstacle in processing, ultimately allowing for individuals to work directly to uncover meaning. When one Googles literacy, images are comprised mainly of letters and images of individuals reading or writing. Literacy is not only reading and writing. It allows for individuals to make sense of the world around them. The definition of literacy has undergone many changes over the years. From its traditional understanding, the quality, condition, or state of being literate, the ability to read and write, literacy has expanded to encompass so much more. From books to photographs, literacy is understood to be the reading of a given medium. Modern literacy, to which visual literacy is a part of, is the ability to make meaning from different forms of media. Brill, Kim, and Branch, in their 2007 study concentrating on the development of defining visual literacy, state that it has been regarded as a language of imagery bound by the explicit juxtaposition of symbols in time and space. Photography does just that. It allows for the viewer to make connections to the image. Photography extends the traditional understanding of literacy, and although reading and writing still holds a huge importance in the educational development of students, it is critical to guide students to not be passive observers and to create their own understanding of an image, whether it be of nature, of political or social life, or of themselves. Nakamura quotes Bolter and Gushun stating, "In our visual culture today, it seems unlikely that any textual representation of the self can hold out against the remediation of the rival visual technology. Students in today's world do not identify themselves with words on a page, but rather a visual representation." What Bolter and Grushin so eloquently point out, the increase in media and technology in our lives has lent itself to a more visual culture where meaning is formed through images. Photography was and has always remained a product of culture. With the intent to convey a message and to preserve memories, individuals have been using image creation through various art forms for centuries. Peter Osborne states, clearly the medium, photography, was a product of need, and extends that photography is a social machine on an assemblage of technical procedures signifying effect and economic functions. It has always been of interest to share and communicate through images. This is largely in part due to the wider audience images can communicate with. Evolving from its original state as a medium to convey political and cultural messages, photography became increasingly popularized by Kodak, making it an experience that people could not only view, but also be able to be active participants in the creation of the images. Individuals were empowered by the presence and the accessibility of photography. Henry Jenkins discusses in his book, Confronting the Challenges of Participatory Culture, Media Education for the 21st Century, that activities become widespread only if the culture supports them, if they fill recurring needs at a particular historical juncture. The tools available to the culture matter, but what that culture chooses to do with those tools matters more. Photography helped to make information accessible for a wider audience in times of need.
In 1996, Snyder observes in Hypertext, the electronic labyrinth, that the space created by each writing technology permits certain kinds of thinking and discourages others. Photography invites us to interact and to think for ourselves. What we see is our own. By way of example, she suggests that blackboards invite repeated modification, casual thinking, and spontaneity, while pen and paper invite care, tidiness, and controlled thinking. Publishing used to be an end, whereas today our work is a living document, continually being modified. Photography invites us to new levels of creativity, evolving as technology transforms around us. Wendy Ewald has spent her life studying how children learn through the study of photography. During her first project with students on a native reservation in 1970, she observed how the children's pictures and words were hardly adequate to convey the difficulty of their situations. But their photo essays were a starting point for acknowledging and discussing, in their own voices, a very tough predicament. Ewald quickly discovered how much power was in the children's work. She claimed it had an unsettling energy. What she realized was that if students were to have opportunities like these ones, teachers would need support to help make it happen and to develop their own creative abilities.
As a product of culture, connection, and communication, photography has changed with people's needs. In the 21st century, photography acts as a representation of self, change in social, cultural, and political life, a means to preserve memories, along with much more. Looking at writing spaces, J. David Bolter discusses the idea that no two individuals reads the same thing. Like individuals' interactions with text, images will never be read the same way. Individuals will read images differently based on their own backgrounds. In essence, photography is not meant to tell one story, but rather to make sense of the world around us. When used to write, photography should challenge the viewer to make meaning. This photo, for example, depicts a young boy. At first glance, we don't notice the hand showing us to be quiet is too large to be that of a child, and that the image symbolically is showing that each individual has a voice. Not every sign or symbol is universal, and as such, two individuals observing a photograph will not extract the same meaning. As discussed, photography is a key means of communication in the world of education. From the early days of photography to our current use of Instagram and other social media, students feel drawn to use photographs to express themselves, to share their understanding of the world, and to have a voice. The power of a photograph is up to the photographer. A picture is worth 1,000 words if we want it to be. It's up to us.